The high-pitched whine of the G800 turbine was deafening inside the hangar, but Arthur could hear the distinct, uneven rattle underneath it. It was subtle. Most guys wouldn't catch it, but to his ears, it sounded like a ticking clock. Victor stepped off the prototype's chrome stairs, adjusting the cuffs of his custom-tailored suit. He didn't even bother looking at Arthur. When he tossed the heavy maintenance clipboard, it hit Arthur hard in the chest, leaving a smear of black grease on his faded blue work shirt. "Wipe down the landing gear, Artie," Victor said, his voice dripping with that familiar, practiced arrogance. "And try not to scratch the paint. This bird right here is worth more than your entire bloodline." Arthur didn't flinch. He didn't scowl. He just caught the board, gave a slight, easy nod, and walked toward the landing gear. He didn't need to argue with a guy like Victor. He already knew a secret that Victor thought was buried 4 years ago. That $80 million private jet sitting in the middle of the room? It was a flying coffin. If you're the kind of person who refuses to trade your morals for a quick paycheck, I want you to drop the words, "I choose integrity," in the comments right now. Claim it for yourself. Let's see who is actually standing firm out there. Most people at the airfield just saw Arthur as the guy with dirt permanently wedged under his fingernails. The guy who clocked in at 5 a.m., kept his head down, and smiled even when the shift supervisors barked at him over absolutely nothing. They didn't know that every evening, that same guy went home to a small, 2-bedroom apartment and turned into a superhero. For an 8-year-old kid named Leo, Arthur was raising the boy completely on his own. He never complained about the hand life dealt him. Instead, he made a point to keep the energy in their home fiercely positive. They'd spend weekends building intricate model airplanes on the cramped kitchen table. But Arthur wasn't just gluing plastic together. He was teaching Leo how the world worked. "If it doesn't fly right the first time, what do we do, bud?" Arthur would ask, wiping superglue off his thumb. "We figure out why, and we build it better." Leo would chirp back, not missing a single beat. That was Arthur's core rule for his son: action over words. Never be afraid to fail, just be terrified of not learning from it. He was a fast learner himself, constantly reading, constantly adapting. He was saving every extra dime, aiming for a day when he'd have enough financial freedom to give Leo the life he truly deserved. But he was going to do it the right way. No shortcuts, no dirty money, just honest work. The hangar, though, was always a high-stress environment, especially with the company's massive VIP launch. Only 3 weeks away, the CEO, Victor, treated the floor like his personal kingdom. He'd walk through with wealthy investors, pointing at the mechanics like they were just pieces of heavy machinery, meant to be replaced when they wore out. But one investor was different: Evelyn Vance. She was the lead backer for the G800 project, a self-made billionaire who didn't inherit a single cent of her money. She built her empire by knowing how things actually worked from the ground up. While Victor was busy schmoozing in the VIP lounge drinking expensive scotch, Evelyn liked to walk the hangar floor. One Tuesday afternoon, a junior mechanic was sweating bullets over a seized actuator on the left wing. He had the thick diagnostic manual out, practically tearing his hair out in frustration. Evelyn was standing nearby, quietly watching the kid struggle. Arthur walked over, with a shop rag in his hand. He didn't look at the manual. He didn't plug in a scanner. He just put his bare hand flat against the cold metal casing, closed his eyes for 2 seconds, and listened to the faint hum of the auxiliary power unit. "It's not the actuator," Arthur said softly, picking up a rubber mallet. "The bypass valve is sticking. It's sending a false pressure read to the sensor. Tap the housing right." Here, he tapped it once. Just a solid, precise knock. The warning light on the diagnostic panel instantly flipped from red to green. The junior mechanic let out a massive breath of relief. Evelyn tilted her head, her sharp eyes locking onto Arthur. "That wasn't in the manual," she said. Arthur just gave a polite, easy smile. "Sometimes the manual only tells you what it's supposed to do, ma'am." not what it's actually doing. He walked away, before she could ask his name. Evelyn watched his back, her brow furrowed. She knew exactly what a standard mechanic looked like. She also knew what a master engineer looked like. The man in the greasy shirt, who just fixed a multi-million-dollar system by sound alone, was definitely not just a mechanic. The real problem, however, wasn't a sticking valve. It was the main engine core. 4 years ago, Arthur had been the lead propulsion engineer for the company. He had designed the original prototype from scratch, but when he ran the final stress tests, he found a fatal harmonic vibration at high altitudes. The engine could literally tear itself apart mid-flight. He refused to sign off on it. Victor, who was desperate for the board's approval and a massive payout, fired Arthur on the spot. He blacklisted him from the aerospace industry, stole the patents, and had someone else forge the safety clearance. Arthur lost his entire career overnight, but he swallowed his pride, took a low-level maintenance job at a different subsidiary just to keep a roof over Leo's head, and waited. Now, late at night, with the hangar completely empty and silent, Arthur plugged a rigged diagnostic tablet into the new G800's mainframe. The screen glowed blue in the dark, illuminating his tired face. He pulled up the live telemetry data from the recent test flights. His jaw tightened. The numbers were right there, staring back at him. The harmonic vibration was still present. Victor hadn't fixed a damn thing. He had just manipulated the software to hide the warning lights from the cockpit. In 3 weeks, they were going to put real, living people onto this plane. Let me pause right here. If you were Arthur, what would you do? Risk your quiet life, your job, and your son's stability to expose a billionaire? If you're the type of person who would risk it all for the truth, hit the comment section and type, "I choose integrity." And while you're down there, if you respect stories about real resilience, hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, but it helps us keep these stories alive. The next afternoon, the school bus dropped Leo off at the airfield security gate, a routine they had on half-days. Leo trotted into the break room, his oversized backpack bouncing against his shoulders. Arthur was covered in oil, so he just bumped elbows with his kid. "Got homework?" Arthur asked, grabbing a bottle of water. "Math." Leo groaned. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and slapped it on the table. "But I drew this during recess instead." Arthur looked down. It was a sketch of the G800 engine, but it wasn't a normal kid's drawing. Leo had copied one of Arthur's old blueprints from home. The margins were filled with complex aerodynamic equations, Arthur's handwriting, practiced and mimicked perfectly by a boy who idolized his dad. "Hey, keep that in your bag, okay, buddy?" Arthur said, a sudden edge of panic in his voice. Before Leo could snatch it back, a manicured hand reached over and picked up the paper. It was Evelyn. She had been getting a cup of coffee from the awful vending machine in the corner. She looked at the drawing. Her eyes scanned the equations, her expression shifting from casual interest to absolute shock. Then, she looked up at Arthur. The easy, polite mask he usually wore slipped for just a fraction of a second. "A mechanic who knows bypass valves by touch," Evelyn said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, "and an 8-year-old carrying around advanced thermal dynamics equations. Who exactly are you?" Evelyn didn't just walk away. She went straight to her private office and made 3 phone calls to her independent auditors. She demanded the sealed personnel files from 4 years ago, specifically the original structural and propulsion clearance logs for the G800 project. It took them less than 48 hours to unearth the dirt. The original safety warning filed by Arthur, the immediate termination notice that followed, and the most damning piece of all, a safety clearance document signed by a lead engineer 3 weeks after Arthur was fired, carrying a signature that didn't match any known employee on the roster. Victor had literally bought a fake signature to push the death trap through. That night, Evelyn waited by Arthur's beat-up pickup truck in the employee parking lot. The rain was just starting to spit down, catching the yellow glare of the streetlights. 4 years, she said as Arthur walked up, keys in hand. You've been sweeping floors for 4 years, when you should be running the entire aerospace division." Arthur stopped. He looked at her, then looked out at the dark runway. He didn't look angry. He just looked tired. "I had a boy to feed." "Miss Vance," Arthur said quietly. "Victor made it clear that if I fought him, I'd be tied up in litigation for a decade. I'd lose my savings, my home, and probably my mind. I chose my son. I chose to be a dad." Evelyn stepped closer, ignoring the rain ruining her expensive coat. "And what are you choosing now? Because Victor is putting human beings on that plane in 2 weeks. He's going to kill them." Arthur's jaw tightened. "I know. I've been tapping into the mainframe at night. The high-altitude harmonic vibration is still there. It's actually much worse than my original projections." "Can you prove it?" she asked. "If I get access to the unredacted flight logs from yesterday's test run." "Yes, but they are locked behind Victor's personal executive firewall." Evelyn pulled a sleek black keycard from her pocket and held it out. "Consider the firewall breached. If you've ever had to make a hard choice to protect your family, you know exactly what Arthur was feeling right there. The system is designed to crush people who play by the rules. But if you're the type who stands up anyway, drop that 'I choose integrity' in the comments. Let's make some noise for the good guys." For the next 3 nights, Arthur didn't sleep. He sat at his cramped kitchen table, Leo sleeping soundly in the next room, and combed through thousands of lines of code and telemetry data. He isolated the exact frequency where the engine mounts would shear off under pressure. He matched it to his original calculations from 4 years ago. The evidence was absolutely bulletproof. The VIP launch gala was held in the main hangar the following weekend. It was a sea of tuxedos, champagne flutes, and blinding camera flashes. The G800 prototype sat perfectly polished in the center, looking like a sleek silver bullet. Victor was on the podium, his teeth gleaming as he talked about revolutionizing private travel, about pushing boundaries, about his own unparalleled vision. He was halfway through a sentence about safety when the hangar's massive audio system let out a sharp, piercing feedback squeal. The crowd winced. The music cut out completely. Evelyn walked up the side stairs to the podium. She wasn't alone. 3 federal agents from the Aviation Authority flanked her, their badges visibly clipped to their belts, and right behind them walked Arthur. He wasn't wearing a greasy blue shirt anymore. He wore a simple, clean charcoal suit. He looked exactly like the lead engineer he always was. Victor's smile froze on his face. The color instantly drained from his cheeks. "Evelyn, what is the meaning of this? Who let the maintenance guy up here?" Evelyn tapped the microphone, the sound echoing across the massive room. "Ladies and gentlemen, Victor is right. We are pushing boundaries tonight. Specifically, the boundaries of federal fraud." She signaled the control booth. The massive screens behind the prototype, which were supposed to show a sleek marketing video, suddenly flashed to Arthur's data. Side-by-side graphs appeared. The faked safety reports sat right next to the actual, fatal vibration metrics recorded just days ago. Arthur stepped up to the microphone. He didn't yell. He didn't gloat. His voice was steady and carried through the dead silent hangar. 4 years ago, I warned you this engine would fail at 40,000 feet. You fired me and buried the truth. But physics doesn't care about your bank account, Victor. The engine is tearing itself apart, and we have the raw data to prove you knew it all along. The investors in the front row started murmuring, which quickly escalated into angry shouts. The federal agent stepped forward, calmly advising Victor to place his hands behind his back. The billionaire CEO didn't even try to fight it. He just stared at the screens, completely broken, realizing his entire empire had just collapsed in front of the world's press. Arthur didn't stick around to watch Victor get stuffed into the back of a federal car. He had already walked out the side door, breathing in the cool night air, finally feeling a weight lift off his chest. 2 months later, the company was entirely restructured. Evelyn bought out the remaining shares and took over as the new chairman. Her first order of business was reinstating the original propulsion team. Arthur got his old corner office back. The salary was enough to make sure Leo would never have to worry about college, or a house, or anything ever again. But on his first day back, Arthur didn't just sit in the leather chair. He walked down to the hangar floor, grabbed a rubber mallet, and showed the new junior mechanic exactly how to listen to the rhythm of a healthy turbine. He was a master engineer, yes, but more importantly, he was a man who never compromised his soul for a paycheck. That's the real lesson here. You can strip a man of his title, you can take his money, and you can force him to sweep floors, but you can never take his integrity unless he willingly hands it to you. If you stayed until the end of this story, you're the kind of person who gets that. Leave our final declaration. I choose integrity in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and keep building your life on a foundation that won't crack. See you in the next one.